Hello, and welcome to Devlog number 17. I had originally planned for this sprint to be focused on cleanup, quality of life, bug fixing, etc., but very quickly we realized early into this that with the call for testers that I put out in the last devlog, this was going to be our best opportunity to get new players through an onboarding process that we could get actual data from. So while I did spend a major portion of it working on a UI overhaul for the Skirmish game that you're seeing here and a couple other feature implementations, I spent the bulk of my Christmas leave working on a mission scripting system and implementing 6 tutorial missions to introduce players to the major game mechanics. But let's talk about the other stuff first. At the bottom of the screen you'll notice that the ship UI has completely changed. The original look had been around since all the way back in Devlog number 2 and I had always hated it and I'd been waiting to improve it. So let me lay out the problems with the old UI first. The first problem was that the ship posture buttons were all icons, there was no words, they were very hard to decipher, and you couldn't really see at a glance what your ship was set to do. The second was that it didn't give you any feedback at what the external systems on your ship were doing or what their condition was. Also, aside from your speed, it didn't really give you any readouts as to the condition of other systems on your ship, like how many thrusters were knocked out, or what your signature was, or what your sensor coverage was if you'd lost a radar panel or something. And finally, the list of damage control priorities was not really shaped or structured in a way that made it easy to read. The icons were a lot taller than they were wide, so the names would get wrapped around to the next line, and it was very difficult to decipher. So going through that list and fixing the problems one by one, on the far left side you'll notice that the posture options have now become all words. They're also color-coded so you can see at a glance what is on and what is off. Everything's still divided into logical groups, but things are not grouped unnecessarily, like the radar and communications on buttons are now separated instead of being combined into a single signature control button. It also shows you in gray DSBL when something is disabled or unavailable on a specific ship, whether it's not installed or is just destroyed and can't be used. Over to the right of that is a list of all the exterior mounts on the ship. Really what I think most players care about is what their external systems were doing. Losing internal systems means you're losing certain buffs and benefits that you had, but really what you care about is why are my guns not firing? And so now with this mount status display you can just look and see, oh, this Mark 62 cannon is destroyed, or this one's been disabled, this one is active, this one's reloading. And now you don't have to guess when your guns are going to fire again because you can see the reload timers. It'll even tell you when your guns can't train themselves on a target because they're being masked by the hull. It'll flash blue if it's trying to turn to a target but it's reached the edge of its traversal limits. Above that is a series of readouts showing you not only your speed now, but also what your thruster power is, so if it's reduced because X number of thrusters have been destroyed. What your signature size is, so if things are boosting your signature, like, because now a new mechanic is that keeping ships tightly clustered together will magnify their radar signature and make them easier to detect at longer range. So with that, you need to be able to know when your ship's signature is increased, and hovering your mouse over that will show a tooltip showing X number of nearby ships is boosting your signature, and this other thing is boosting it, for example. And then below that is sensor coverage, showing you which radar panels are destroyed and how much sector coverage you have, which previously you never really knew. And then finally, two big improvements to the damage control list is that, one, it's now vertical instead of horizontal, so the full names of the modules are a lot easier to see and it's a lot less cluttered. And two, progress bars, which were desperately needed, although I did notice while recording this I introduced a bug where the damage control teams weren't being automatically dispatched to do repairs, but I fixed it and I just don't have it in the pushed Steam version. The progress bars are a big benefit because it was always a big pain to know when were your damage control teams going to finish repairing a debuff. If your reactor was about to explode, it's really nice to know if your damage control teams are going to finish fixing it before it goes or not, and now the progress bars let you see that. Overall, I've gotten a really good reception to the new UI. The testers really appreciate all of the new details and information that it gives you that they didn't have before. I'd still like to do some more graphic design work for the UI. Specifically, the action menu hasn't been touched at all, and I definitely need to rework what that's going to look like. Overall, I'm trying to make it look more like a simple ops console, so hard lines, thin lines, lots of status displays and colors. But overall, I'm definitely happy with the direction it's moving in. Now, the bulk of my time was spent implementing a mission scripting system that looks like this. I used a Unity library called Xnode in order to write all of this, which was really helpful. I did have to do a little bit of hacking for these vertically chained nodes, The lead developer on that project is working on a vertical chaining system, but I was not going to wait for it to be released in order to make it so that this wasn't going to be as cluttered. So I hacked it a little bit, but it worked out really well. It's really helpful to have this system. It took me probably maybe a week and a half in order to get all of the nodes written, but once I had done it, I was able to bang out the tutorial missions in a couple hours each. And it's really beneficial. I really like the system. It's basically, it has a flow across here, executing a sequence of events, then waiting for a condition, executing another sequence of events. And then there's all these nodes up here that let us get things like ships and their details, what's firing at what's being selected, what's locked. And there's a lot of flexibility here and a lot of capability that can be expanded in the future for actual storyline campaign missions, which is something that we're going to have in the long-term future. The fruits of that labor are here in the form of 6 tutorial missions in the new campaign list. Under the Fleet Academy, there's now tutorial missions for basic maneuvering, how to use weapons, how to do damage control, how electronic warfare works, how advanced maneuvering works, and advanced missile tactics. The only one of these that isn't completed yet is the advanced maneuvering one. We put all this effort in and banged these out as fast as we could, voice acting and all, so that in the next couple days when we finally announce who the new testers are going to be, we can sit down and watch them play this and see how well the tutorials do at teaching them how to play a game with pretty novel mechanics that none of them have played before. We had to get this done in time because these are probably going to be the last group of testers for a while, and so this was our last chance that we were going to get a fresh, truly fresh set of eyes on the game that would have no experience at all to test the tutorials on. These tutorials all take place on a new small map called Cliff. I put this map together just explicitly for the tutorial, although now it is actually a playable map at the request of the testers. But I designed the map this way because I think a very distinct feature of this game compared to other space games is the scale of the environment compared to the ships. All space games take place in space, obviously, where it's huge and vast, but it's a vast emptiness. And yes, that's what space is like, really, but I also don't think that it's very visually interesting from a design perspective. In most space games, you have a big open field with a couple asteroids scattered around. They're usually smaller than the ships, or if they're bigger than them, they're not really that much bigger, but you're never really dwarfed by anything the way you are by the asteroids in this game. And so I wanted to make sure that the very first thing a new player saw when they got into the map was this giant asteroid that just completely dwarfed their ships and make them say, whoa, this is very different. So these are clips from the tutorial missions playing in the background. Basically, they'll take you through everything from how to move your ships and how to do formations to how to shoot guns to the advanced ones teaching you how to do complex missile waypoint paths. And I think it covers pretty much everything that the players need to know in order to be good at the game. But as I said, we'll see how effective they actually are once our new testers get a hold of them. So if you did volunteer to be a tester, please keep an eye out for any announcements in the near future on whether or not you were selected. In terms of what's going to happen next, I got sidetracked on this sprint because we knew we had to get the tutorials done. So right now I have a bug list as long as my leg that needs to be addressed, and there's optimizations that need to be made and quality of life improvements that need to be made. So this next sprint is probably going to focus almost exclusively on that. I do want to wrap up the sensor EA balancing from the previous sprint, including acclimation to jamming. And then I also want to finish up the comms EA balancing that I need to do. But other than that, this next sprint is probably just going to be exclusively bug fixing and polishing, because it's been a long time since I've done that and I need to get to it. And with that, that concludes our update. If you're interested in the project, please join us on our Discord. We talk about it all the time and we're happy to hear suggestions from our fans. Also, please wishlist the game on Steam if you haven't already. That helps us with visibility and helps get the word out to more people. The links for all these things are in the description below, so please check them out, and thank you for watching.